Welcome to this piano tutorial for Mosaic MSC's worship song, Tremble. In this tutorial, I'll be going over specifically this piano accompaniment arrangement. If you're interested in it, if it sounds like something you might want to learn or use in your church or worship setting, you can hear a demo of it and you can get the sheet music at the link in the description. Alright, in this tutorial, I want to go over a few things in this arrangement. The main thing is some of the tricky parts in the right hand that you find in the choruses. They're not difficult to wrap your head around, but there are a lot of notes and a lot of moving notes and a lot of jumps, and so it requires a little bit of a technique to master those without being sloppy. So I want to go over that. And the other thing I want to go over is in the instrumental section, page 4, measure 46. I want to go over this little section here, briefly describe what the notation means and maybe some different ways that you can play it. Alright, and as I go along, I also want to demonstrate maybe some ways that you can simplify this arrangement. If it is maybe a step beyond what you're able to do, there are some things you can do to make it a little easier. Alright, looking at the first page, when you get to the first chorus, here's what that little lick sounds like all by itself. Sorry, that's not what it sounds like. Just like that. This one's not too hard. You can see there's an octave leap at the end of the measure. You've got a low G and a high G right here. I play those with my thumb and my pinky. My first finger, my fifth finger here. If you put your hand there, if you plant it in that spot, the rest of the notes should come pretty easily. Here's what I mean. If you plant your fingers, your thumb on that low G, your pinky on the high G, all the other notes fit in here and should be easy to play. See, I don't have to move my hand around, do some hand gymnastics to make that. It all fits right in there. And as you're playing that, just an interpretive note, that chorus, really, the first couple choruses really are a more ethereal, kind of meditative sound. And that lick is supposed to kind of give that kind of a feel, kind of sparkly, starlight night kind of a feel. So let the pedal ring, let those notes kind of ring together. Play them lightly with a kind of sparkly, energy behind it. Don't let them be choppy, don't let them stand out, because they will if you play it. If you play them too hard, too loud, they are going to conflict with the melody. It's intended to be a background kind of texture. And really that goes for that goes for the next chorus as well. On page 2, I'll show you measure 21. The chorus repeats, and I've taken that same lick you heard in the first chorus, and I've just moved it up one inversion, which is to say, if you don't understand what that means, I just moved it up a little bit. So that's how it sounds. Now, this one is a little more difficult because the lowest note you play in your right hand is the same G as before, but the highest note you play is a C above the highest G you had played before. So you're going to have to move hand positions when you play it. You can't just leave your hand in one spot unless you've got gigantic hands. That's not going to work. So here's how I play it. Here's how I approach it. I treat the second half of the measure, when you get to these two notes, I move my hand. Let me show you what I mean. I change my fingering. The first notes kind of sits like that, where I'm playing the G and the E at the very beginning with my fifth, and third finger. Then when I get here, I play, and everybody's hands are different, everybody's anatomy is slightly different. You may want to work out your own fingering, but I then put my third finger on the D here. And so I end up using my third finger there twice in a row. It goes like that. You could do see, it really comes in, it's really important here in this last phrase where you hit that low note. See, I move that third finger from the E to the D so I can reach that low G there. Hope that makes sense. The important part is you should not, if you're having trouble getting that, you should not just try to wing it and hope that the Spirit's going to fill you on a Sunday morning and you're going to just nail that in the moment. If you can't nail it in practice, you're probably not going to nail it in the service. So take a couple minutes to zoom into that and figure out fingering that works for you. All right, next section I want to look at is the third page, measure 36, the transition into the chorus. Right here, this leap happens a few times in the arrangement, and it's tricky. In fact, if you listen to the demo carefully, you can see I don't even always make that leap. Here's what I mean. Okay, I did it right there. You hear that? It's hard to go from playing a G-C-G to a C-G-C. You know, it's one of those things. It's so close, but yet so far. They're the same notes, C's and G's, but the intervals are such that it just requires the slightest of movement, and you're not always ready for that when you take a leap up. I suggest you take your right hand and you practice that leap slowly until you can get it flawlessly. So let me take this measure, go into that one, and show you what I mean. Take it slow. Like that. And then take just those two notes, go back and forth. That's a really effective exercise. Speed it up. Like that. Until you can get it and you feel comfortable with that movement. Alright, when you get to that chorus, the right hand really fills out a lot more. I wanted to say it gets more complicated. It really doesn't. It's just eighth notes, straight eighth notes. There's no syncopation. But it does fill out more. And if you're not used to playing a lot of notes at a time, or you've got smaller hands, or you're not used to reading ledger lines, it can present some challenges. There's a lot of the same notes over and over again, which works in your favor. I think if you were to sit down and decipher it, once you had it deciphered, you'd have it. It wouldn't be that difficult. But let me show you some ways that you might be able to simplify it. So you might have noticed if you've read the sheet music or you've listened to the part, that there is a kind of melodic character to it. You can kind of hear it. I hear it in my head as, and this is a kind of melody I was even thinking as I wrote the arrangement, is something like that. those moving parts is what I was hearing in my head. They come up in these blank spots where there's no melody being sung by the vocals. That's where that movement and the melody and the piano part come in. It adds a little bit of interest, gives the pianist an opportunity to play something more than chords without running over the melody. So if you can keep those little melodic parts, but maybe get rid of some of the extraneous notes around it, you might still have a really nice piano part. So, for example, let's try removing all the top notes and see how that sounds. Sounds great. In fact, some might say it sounds less obnoxious. You may decide to do that. Even if you can play the whole thing, you may decide to do that because you decide that it sounds better, and that's totally okay. That's your prerogative. You could even try just removing the bottom notes, taking out these ones. That would sound like this. Again, you're not really taking away from the musical ideas there. It is a little harsher. Your hands are more spread out. So it doesn't sound as full, maybe, in the piano part, but that may actually be a desired effect, depending on what your band, if you're playing with a band, what the setup is. Maybe the guitars, you've got a bunch of acoustics, and they're playing in this spectrum, and you want something, a part that kind of cuts through over the top of all of that. You might decide to just play those notes up here. Taking out one of those notes does make that melody line a little more clear. It makes it stand out more, and that might be a musical decision that you make, and that's totally okay. Other things you can do to simplify this arrangement is just remove maybe how many times your left hand plays. They don't have to play quarter notes. It can play half notes. It can play whole notes. The nice thing about this style of music is that it repeats itself a lot, and it's built on pretty simple rhythms. And so you can usually simplify things simply by just cutting out how many times something you're playing is iterated. You can just play it fewer times, not as many, and that can make it a lot more simple. Alright, the other thing I wanted to go over was the instrumental section on page 4. If you're playing this as a worship leader, you may decide to end it here, and I put that as an option. You never know what your setting is. You never know how much time you have in a particular event. So you may want to cut it short. You may want to take it as long as the Mosaic MSC does in the recording. In either case, I tried to give an option for both in the sheet music for worship leaders. If you were to continue on, and you do it the way the recording does it, you find yourself in a little breath, a little Selah moment, where there's an instrumental section, some vocal ad-libbing. And I wrote in the lead line here that you hear on the recording. I put it in there, but I don't think it's integral. I don't think it has to be played. And it certainly doesn't have to be played by the piano. I don't think you want to lose the thick chords here, because if you do that, you lose the bedding, you lose the context for the melody line, you lose a lot of the color that these chords establish. I tried in the demo to demonstrate if you were to just play the chords, and if you were to try to add in the melody with the chords, which in one sense is impossible to do, but I've tried to give you everything so you can make the decision of what you want to play, what you don't want to play. You might even find that little melody line, since it's written out, can be covered by another instrument. Maybe a guitarist or saxophonist, a violinist, maybe even a singer doing oohs and ahs. I don't know. Thinking out loud, trying to be creative. I don't think you should look at it and think, I have to play all of that and it's impossible. What was he thinking? Here's what I did in the recording. You just play the chords, you know, it's straightforward like that. You try to add the melody in. Then I jumped onto the chord and I just skipped that little D up there. Like that. Another way you could do this that I've tried before is just changing this and maybe adding a G to the left hand, or if your hands are big enough, a B instead of the G, so that your left hand plays like this or this, and in that case your right hand doesn't have to leave the upper register to play that melody line. Here's what I mean. You could go like that. Again, it's up to you. Alright, the last page is just like that other course we already looked at. Practice those leaps. Make sure you're confident with those. There's nothing like landing on a climactic chorus and the pianist just going, throwing their hand up there and it sounds disgusting. You don't want to do that. Make sure you can make those leaps nice and clean, crisp, confident, and all of that stuff. Thanks for watching. Again, if you're interested in learning more about this arrangement, others that are available, they're available on a website. You can see the demo, a video demo of me playing it, and you can get the sheet music for yourself. Just click the link in the description below. Thank you.